But what happened in China is different. China did not fulfill that commitment to pass a smoking ban in public places. In 2016 and 2017, Xi Jinping tried, and effectively, it was stopped by China Tobacco. What we saw in the years after that was a number of Chinese cities passing their own smoking bans, but we saw that China Tobacco, by 2022, 2023, had swung into action to stop smoking bans at a municipal level.
In the last 20 years, the rest of the world has managed to reduce the adult smoking rate from 34% to 23%. If China had followed the global downward trend, there'd be about 80 million fewer people addicted to tobacco now. And China did pledge to adopt the same anti-smoking measures that successfully led other countries to reduce consumption so dramatically. Along with 167 other countries, in 2005, China signed the same major WHO treaty aimed at controlling tobacco internationally. It vowed to protect its citizens from the vested interests of the tobacco industry.
This treaty was significant globally. Since it was signed, tobacco use rates around the world have declined significantly in India, in Brazil, in the United States, in Western Europe, and Latin America. Rates have just plunged. In China, they've barely budged.
Most efforts have systematically been bulldozed by China Tobacco. China Tobacco found sneaky ways to get past the commitments of the WHO treaty. For instance, they were involved in the translation of the treaty into Chinese and made sure the language was weaker than in the original. Another way they undermined the treaty is through warning labels on cigarette packages. This was one of the key points that China agreed to when signing the treaty. The warning labels were supposed to be large and hard-hitting, but China Tobacco managed to overturn these decisions. In China, the labels are much softer and easier to miss. These are Zhonghanhai cigarettes, produced by Shanghai Tobacco, a major subsidiary of China Tobacco.
So if you look at the Chinese cigarette warning labels today, you'll notice it's just a text warning label and it blends in very nicely with the rest of the packaging. The content of the warning label says smoking is harmful to health, which is a very generic way of warning people about the health consequences of smoking.
But lately, it's become even harder to combat China Tobacco's influence.
Starting around 2017, 2018, things started to change. And they didn't just change around tobacco control. China started to become a much more authoritarian place. Xi Jinping, as we know, ended the tradition of staying in power for only 2 terms. And a whole array of sort of civil society functions began to disappear in China, and civil society groups and advocacy groups that were once tolerated, all of a sudden were no longer tolerated. And interestingly, that even happened in tobacco control, an area that you would think is absolutely non-political. And so where previously you had lawyers taking China Tobacco to court, you had tobacco control groups being very outspoken in the press and in public forums about the company's harmful role in Chinese society.